Right, we'll be getting started here momentarily. So, as you're starting to hop onto the broadcast, please feel free to react to this video. You can also start commenting on the video so we can see who is tuned in with us and give you some quick recognition at the start. All right, well, let's get this rolling and going. I do see that the alert is starting to show up on my end. So I know several of you will start viewing this broadcast, whether you do this morning, afternoon, in the evening, even on a weekend, if you decide to forego going out and just want to binge watch all of our videos. Thank you for tuning in to our broadcast. You can find all of these videos on the video section here on our Facebook page. You can also find it if you're viewing it right now on our YouTube channel, Westminster Chamber of Commerce, where we link it simultaneously. So if you ever know of anyone that doesn't have one platform or another, you can always direct them to ways that they can engage with our videos and rewatch them. Now, we've been doing these videos for over 2 years now, and we have different experts that have been on here with us, all the way to our elected officials, and of course, to today, what we do on Wednesdays, which is basically welcome some of our newer partners into the chamber. But before we really delve down deep into that, you know, I love to give you some housekeeping, and so I am going to regurgitate this, take this time to just take a deep breath if you've heard it before. If you are not already engaged with us on all of our social media platforms, we are on Instagram and Twitter at Westy Chamber. We're also on LinkedIn, Westminster Chamber of Commerce. And if for some reason you've never been to our website before, which would be a huge shocker, that is westminsterchamber.biz. And that is where a lot of the information, not only about our chamber exists, but about our business community happenings that are going on in terms of news that they have, all the way to our events in the community, events with our members, jobs that are available, and so many other resources. So make sure you hop onto that website at any point in time. Now, if it's your very first time being on the broadcast with us, here's how this works. There is a function that you can react to this video with any of the emojis that are there. You can give us a thumbs up, a heart. If you are frustrated or pissed off at me for whatever reason, you can give me an angry face as well. Whatever you would like to react to the video allows us to see who you are and to see that reaction and the emotion. The second way you can engage with us on this video is through the comment section. The comments are the number one way that we pull any feedback that you wanted to share with us. If there's questions that you have for our guests, this is where we come to. Or if there's just good morning pleasantries you want to drop in, we love seeing your faces. We love hearing those comments. So type them into the comment section. Now, another way that you can also do your part on these broadcasts is to hit the share button on this video so others in your network can see that we're also live. If they are interested in some of the information, they can hop on over and join us and, of course, engage with us on this broadcast. If you haven't already liked the page, you should probably do that. Not only like it, but follow the page. If it's on our YouTube platform, then hit the subscribe button. When you do follow or get that notification or the subscribe, for example, it actually will pop up when we do go live or post content. So you're not wondering whatever happened with that video. Are they going live? Let me go to the page directly. It'll actually buzz you on your home screen, on your phone, tablet, or whatever other device that you're signed into via social media. So long-winded, but it's information that you all should know. And welcome to our broadcast. Welcome with us. I already see with us a few folks. We have Ann Hogan that's tuned in with us. Thank you, Ann, for giving a quick good morning message. We always love seeing some of our business owners tune in and support our newer members. We also have our current board chairman, Brian Dice, tuning in with us. Good morning to you as well, Brian. Thank you for hopping on to our morning AM broadcast. And then we have Parker Brown over there at Carrabba's. Thank you, Parker, for tuning into our broadcast this morning and the quick good morning message. If you haven't already done so, I'm asking all three of you to hit the share button on this video. So those are some quick good morning pleasantries that we have. Again, today's broadcast is dedicated for our newer partners. And one of our newer partners to the Chamber is First Bank. And I'm so pleased to bring with us Connor this morning. Connor is just one of those kindred souls that I was able to meet with. It feels like yesterday, but it's actually been months already. So I'm very pleased to have you on here with us, Connor.
Yeah, Julia, thank you so much for having me on and for allowing us to have this conversation today. Really looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Well, you and your team and even the bank are doing considerable work in our community. I know we have partners like Angela over here that hopped on and shared a good morning and then shared that she appreciates all you do for the schools and those kiddos that she's engaged with over at the Jeffco Schools Foundation. So that actually snowballs us into our first comment, which is tell us about First Bank and who you all are and some of those principles that you guys hold dearly.
Sure, absolutely. So, First Bank we're a local bank, we're a regional bank. We were started back in about 1963 with our first location, opened up in a trailer inside of a parking lot, is where we began our first one. And when I mean trailer, I mean you could have hooked it up to a 16-wheeler and just driven it off at any point. And, we've definitely grown since then. We're now up to about 100 different branch locations here within Colorado itself. We service about 800 to about 820,000 customers spread between both Colorado and our outlying locations. We have about 14 branches in Phoenix, Arizona, and then about another 5 or so in the Coachella Valley of Southern California. And so, with being a local bank, we really like to be involved in the community that we deal with. So we're not like some of the other institutions where you walk in the front door and there's no one to greet you and all you have are those ATMs. Every time you walk in our front door, you've got smiley faces and someone who's ready to help you as soon as you do, walk through the door. Because we are local, we have local decision makers. And so myself, along with my colleagues that are bank officers, we're the ones who, will originate new loans. We do loans for houses, for construction. We do loans in the community for small businesses, medium-sized businesses. And so really the mentality that we have is that we like to invest where we both live and where we work itself. People that are on the broadcast might remember our tagline back in the day used to be, the Colorado Bank for You. And now we've transitioned over to Banking for Good, because what we really want to do is take care of our employees, our customers, and our communities just as a whole itself. Some folks that are on might be familiar with the Colorado Gives Day that happens in December of every year. That was actually a First Bank kind of started initiative where we really wanted to be able to fundraise for those nonprofits and to be able to give back to everyone. And so, little blurb about us right there.
Yeah, no, it's a little blur, but it's so informative. So thank you so much for giving some context and background. I always love hearing the origins of things. Just the founding is so humbling, and to see the growth that's sustained since then. And then you mentioned Coachella Valley. So hopefully one of my good girlfriends who leads a chamber out there, Katie, is tuned in or will tune in at some point and watch this. I'm sure she's partnered with you all heavily out that way. But one of the things that you actually shared was our way of re-engaging with you all, and that was that customer service component. So I know we work with you considerably from the business side, and kind of had gone in and seen firsthand some of that customer service and support that went past the ATM, went past just the here's the transaction, but actually it was about 2 hours of one-on-one dedicated time. So very appreciative of the team and the staff that you all have, and I'm excited to see you guys continue to grow even past the markets that you're serving today. So you mentioned Gives Day. How does that look on a continual basis? So on an annual basis, these individuals are donating funds, and the funds are distributed to our nonprofits. You generally stand up even a website that is dedicated toward this. How are nonprofits selected on that website, or what's the process for it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we partner with a company called the Community First Foundation, and they are the ones who take the full force and intent as far as the Colorado Gives Day is concerned. And so, look, the program itself has grown over the last decade since we had rolled it out, to the point where this last December, there were over 2,600 local nonprofits that had been registered and were able to be a part of the giving and the contributions for that day. And so essentially, there's an onboarding process that any nonprofit, if they're interested in, are able to contact the Community First Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
They go through the vetting to make sure it is a 501c3, that the money or any of the other 501 structures, and then making sure that that the funds are staying local in the community. That's very important to us, that we are investing in where we live and where we work. And so, kind of once that vetting process is gone through, then that nonprofit is able to post a page on the Community First Foundation's website to be able to start fundraising. First Bank, what we really like to do is we engage our employees in it as well, and so we allow automatic deductions to come out on a small basis, from every paycheck. So, some of our tellers are able to donate $1 or $5 every paycheck, and so while that might not seem like a lot on a daily basis or on a paycheck by paycheck basis, it adds up by the end of the year. And then, there's a pool of money that the any person who invests in Colorado Gives Day is then able to access, and they're able to send those funds out to their nonprofits that they've selected themselves. A lot of effort is done on that same exact day of Colorado Gives Day, which last year was December 7th, if I remember correctly, where every nonprofit's out there, beating the drums and getting everyone excited and motivated. And last year, we're pleased to announce that we raised over $56 million for the community that was able to be distributed back out. So
that is awesome work. And thank you so much for giving some context about how that program is run and ways that nonprofits can take part in it. I know we always like to promote that out so folks are aware of it, and will continue to do so. But I think it also speaks volumes where you're having your employees continue to donate on a daily basis, or on a monthly basis, however their pay structure is scheduled. But it does make a difference. You're absolutely right. Every dollar adds up. And then when you're looking at those locations that you shared, all across Colorado, in Arizona, all over, that's a considerable amount of employees that you all have, which leads me to my next question. And that's how many people are working with you, and which branch can people find you at?
yeah, absolutely. So the company as a whole, as I said, we're spread between the 3 states, but we have about 2,700 full-time employees that are spread around. The vast majority of them are going to be here in Colorado. As I mentioned, we have about 100 branch locations, maybe a few more. And then our headquarters are actually out of Lakewood, Colorado. And so considerable amounts of, IT folks, human resources, all of those internal departments that help a company run are all based out of our Lakewood office themselves. So we do have about 2,700, total employees. Something that I found kind of interesting, I was doing a little bit of research, before our conversation today, and about 25% of those employees have at least 10 years of service with the bank. So we're not like some of those other institutions that just has turnover, but we really, invest in our employees and in making sure that everyone feels that they are, valued as part of the team. And that speaks volumes based off of the longevity that more than 25% of those 2,700 have been here for at least a decade. I mean, our senior leadership, they started off as tellers, or they started off as management trainees, and they've been with the company for 25, 30 years apiece.
Yeah, that is a huge milestone, and especially in your industry, because I feel like a lot of times what we see is folks leaving select banks so that they can move up or have other opportunities open up. And so to hear that you've got not only that retention that's significantly, but you're promoting within, really breeds that loyalty and breeds that continual commitment. Ramon, thank you for hopping onto the broadcast with us and giving us a quick thumbs up. I see you on here tuning in and engaging. We have Connor with us from First Bank, giving us some quick updates on their bank. He did give some information about their founding, their origin, what they do today, some quick numbers. And now I want to get to you the part that I enjoy the most, which is getting to know Connor a little bit more personally, so that you don't just view him as a banker and that's it, because there's so much more to him than meets the eye. And even though when you're looking at Connor, he is a very polished individual, so I'm not discounting that. But Connor, can you tell me, are you a native of Colorado? Or are you a transplant? Who is Connor?
Definitely. Unfortunately for probably most of the viewers, I am one of those transplants that's been clogging up the roads. I was raised in Vegas, Las Vegas, Nevada, and then after college I moved out here. So that would have been about 2016. So I'm coming up on 6 years of having been living in Colorado. When I first moved out here, I was living in Aurora. Things were going great. And then I moved up here into actual Westminster back in about 2018, right around August. And so I both, live personally in Westminster, play around Westminster, and then as well as, two of the locations that I work out of from the bank's perspective are also located in Westminster. So I daily house out of the location here on 88th and Wadsworth, which is the one that I'm physically sitting at today. But occasionally I'm at that location over on 104th and Federal. So you kind of see me pattering around that area around downtown Westminster is where I live and work.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for humoring me with that and giving me some background and who you are. How was it moving from Vegas to Colorado? And I think there's this perception too, whenever you think of Vegas, is like the whole, like all of Nevada being kind of this lively nightlife, etc. So,
Yep. Yep. So, obviously growing up in Vegas, you don't have access to all that lively, part of Vegas. I mean, if you're going downtown, you're not gambling, you're not going to the clubs or anything. So the
sure.
transition process from Vegas, out to Colorado, wasn't huge. I did go to college out in Nebraska, so I was used to the cold. I was used to actually dealing with weather seasons versus in Vegas, it's just like opening up an oven door and sticking your head in, 9 months of the year. Kind of funny that you ask about it, though. The biggest transition, not issue, but impact from when I moved out here was brought my car out. Things were great. At the time, I was working downtown. I took the light rail one day. I was wearing jeans and a t-shirt to work, and I took the light rail
Oh my goodness.
downtown. It was
Yeah.
awesome. By the time I left, it was snowing. It had already snowed about 4 inches. Well, this desert rat over here did not have an ice scraper. And so there it was, like 8 o'clock at night in one of the light rail stations. And I had my credit card and I was scraping down the windows with that, just in a t-shirt. And so the first stop on the way home was at a Lowe's, where I was like, I need one of those industrial bad boys now.
That's so funny. Yeah, you and I both moved around the same time. So it was 2017 when I moved to Colorado, also a transplant. And I remember leaving my office and it was iced over all over my car. And of course, like who carries that? I'm from Oklahoma. Like our snow is nothing. Fortunately, I had someone with me, so I didn't have to use the credit card, but they gave me their ice scraper,
Lucky.
and it's the same one that I have in my car until this day.
Same,
But they don't tell you that on any guides or resources. So it's a learning curve.
for sure.
Um, Angela gave a quick testimony, and this was around Colorado Gives Day. So earlier in our broadcast, we talked about First Bank's commitment to the community and their newer motto that really focuses on the community more and supporting that. We also went in detail about Colorado Gives Day, which is an annual event that takes place in partnership with Community First Foundation, who really manages that event for the bank. Angela was sharing from that lens, because she leads a nonprofit in the area, that they were able to collect nearly 20,000 this last year alone for their students. So just wanted to pull up that testimony for you so that you can see some of that impact personally on one of our area nonprofits that's in the
And Juliet, one of the other things that First Bank does, in addition to the Colorado Gives Day, is that we empower every single one of our employees from the second that they're hired to do volunteer. But we actually have a program called Volunteer Time Off, where every person is given 2 business days worth of hours, so 16 hours that they're able to dedicate to the community itself, so that they're still being paid, and instead of them showing up to work and being on the teller line or doing new accounts or whatever their role happens to be, they can take that time to be able to invest in any nonprofit that they desire. It's not like there's a checklist that says it has to hit these boxes in order to be approved. It's just if you have a passion for something, if it's dogs, if it's children, if it's people who are impacted with homelessness, anything like that, that we empower all of our employees to go out and give to those 16 hours, so that they're able to help out the communities. And then in addition, our banking officers, from those that are just starting off, their careers, all the way up to our senior leadership, there is an expectation that we are on communities with nonprofits, that we are sitting on the boards of nonprofits, so that we're able to share our expertise to help those nonprofits continue to grow. So it's much more than just Colorado Gives Day for us. We, as I keep saying it, but we really love to invest in our community.
Well, and hours and manpower, so many things that people need, and so many nonprofits. I mean, I know us included. So whenever we do find that there are companies that reward and support employees with getting involved, we love that. And honestly, I think that fills into that 25% rate that you mentioned of over 10 years plus, because you've got a lot of people that work for you, but then they also see that they can contribute to the community that they live in, that they work in. And that's an entirely different experience. It's more soul fulfilling, is what I like to say, and more focused on like, what can we do for the greater good and not just the self. And I know, as you and I are kind of in the same age pool as our generation is focused on the larger purpose, it's a huge incentive for us. Brian Head, thank you for tuning in to the broadcast. This is one of our past board chairmen as well. I also see Rosie on here as well. Thank you, Rosie, for tuning in and jumping on with us. We've got Connor from First Bank, and now we're transitioning to some banking myths, which are usually my favorite part in these random broadcasts that we do, and that's asking questions that we hear about an industry, allowing for those professionals or those
Juliet, I
experts.
apologize. I got a call on my phone randomly, and
Oh, it's
so
okay.
my audio got muted. Give me just a second to figure
Okay.
this out. Sorry about that.
That's so funny. Well, as Connor is figuring out his tech, please feel free to engage with our video and type in any questions or comments for us to pull from.
Juliet, I apologize. I'm going to try leaving and rejoining the call in just a
Yeah.
second. Sorry.
And so type in any comments or questions our way so we can be able to ask him. As we were just sharing, we're transitioning now to the Q&A portion of this broadcast. Our Q&A portion does allow us to ask questions of our guests. Often it's questions that you may submit to us. The other part of that is questions that we might ask about the industry in general. And so what we like to generally throw at our experts or our guests are these questions that they don't even know, but they're questions that are supposed to be debunking specific thoughts about their industry, specific services that they might have. And they may be questions that you've fielded before, you've thought of when you've considered working with them. And so that's the purpose behind asking those debunking the myth type of questions. But if you have any questions that are not included on the list of them, you can always feel free to type those in. Connor, can you hear me okay?
I can. Apologies about that.
That is okay. It happens. It's the tech world. So let's jump right into it. Here's a thought that's out there, and that is about mobile or online banking. We know that there's been this transition over to less in person, less in the retail storefronts. Does actual mobile or online banking put someone's information at risk?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one that we get a lot, especially from our community that has gone through a lot of different changes in the banking world since they were first born. And as far as online banking, it is a very secure process itself, as long as you are protective of your passwords. I mean, that's something that's huge in the finance industry, just huge in the tech world, regardless of what you're doing, is that you really need to hold those passwords dear and near to your heart. And you got to be a little, mistrusting of other people. Unfortunately, the scammers out there, the fraudsters, are just absolutely phenomenal at the the ways that they try to gather people's personal information. So, with online banking, we always recommend that you have those strong passwords. A lot of times, every year they send out the list of the top 10 most used passwords. And unfortunately, every year, the actual word password is the most used password in the United States itself. And so what we really encourage our customers to do when they do come into the bank and when they're setting up their online banking profiles with us is to say, you need to choose something that only you know. You shouldn't be giving out your credentials to anyone, even if you're family members. We tell everyone you have to be slightly mistrusting as to what's out there. There's a lot of phishing attempts and scam attempts where people get emails saying, hey, click this link, and unfortunately they work. And so, we tell our customers that we're never going to send you an email asking you for your password. I don't know your password. If you call in, to me and you try to talk to me over the phone, I'm not going to ask you for your online banking password. I'm not going to ask you for your PIN as far as your debit card is concerned. And so that information needs to be held near and dear to your heart, but also be a little bit challenging. Don't just choose, your first dog's name in the street that you grew up in. Make it something that's a little bit more serious and contains different numbers.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for those tips and for answering that question very candidly, and not beating around the bush on it, because it is something that's important. And, the best way that I've heard about some of these crimes that take place, and not just cyber crimes, really any crimes, is that that is their job. I know it sounds terrible, but that is what they wake up and their focus is to do that. And so as vigilant as they are with trying to take your information, we have to be just as vigilant in protecting our information as well. We have Commissioner Tracy Kraft-Tharp that also hopped onto our broadcast with us. giving us a good morning message. Thank you, Tracy, for all you do for Jeffco and for tuning into the broadcast with us this morning. Okay, Connor, here's another one for you. Are debit cards and credit cards the same when it comes to theft protection? So, in terms of how they work, are credit cards and debit cards created equally in terms of the level of protection that they offer against identity theft?
Yeah, definitely. That is a wonderful question. And it's a tough one to fully answer without getting into the nuances, which I really don't want to bore everyone with. But essentially, debit cards offer that first layer of protection because they do have the PIN, that personal identification number that has to be utilized at that point of sale machine. So if you are going out to the grocery store and you plug that card into the point of sale reader, it's going to ask you what's that code. And that's that first level of protection itself. Credit cards don't have that. You stick it in, right? And then you just click credit and it'll run through with the transaction itself. And so, one of the things that we talk to our customers about when they get them is that you really need to hold on to that piece of plastic, right? Whether it's the debit card or whether it's the credit card. As far as identity, theft and identity protection, a lot of that isn't related to the actual card itself. It's related to where you go to utilize those items. And so if you go into a bank and you stick your debit card into our ATMs, we check those on a daily basis to make sure that there's no readers, there's no scams, that no one's trying to hack into it. But a lot of times we hear out in the industry, Target, lost 6 million consumers' credit card information or debit card information. And that really happens because every time you stick your card into the reader, there's some sort of a log that you did stick that into the reader. And so hackers really go over, those larger companies and they try to hit them. A lot of times we tell our customers, again, is be mistrusting of where you're going. If you're at a sketchy gas station in the middle of nowhere, don't just stick your card in without looking to see, does it look like the device has been tampered with? Does it look like there's some sort of a camera that's recording as you put it in there or checking to see when you put your PIN in? With the regulations that are out there, if you do fall victim to fraud or a scam, that's not on you. So if you do see it, it's a very terrifying experience when you check your bank statement and see, I'm down $30 or $300 or even $3,000. That's when you're going to want to call your bank or your financial institution immediately and say, I'm the victim of fraud. And they will work with you in order to get your funds back. And so that's, I think, not really well known, is that the process seems scary. But when you have a bank like First Bank, you're able to walk in the front door and say, I've been the victim of a scam. And we sit you down immediately and we say, okay, we're gonna put these reports together. We're going to get you a new card and get rid of the old one. We're going to work with you to make sure that you get your funds back. And that's, I think, a huge testament to us that you still are able to, talk to someone physically to help you through that scary process.
Yeah, no, and I think you're absolutely spot on. You guys are now equipped, unfortunately, with so many of these happening and everything. You have your own departments and you have your ways of dealing with that, and in a way that's succinct. I know I've gone through those processes before. Whenever you're like, wait, this is not something that I charged. I should have. That seems like a great purchase, but it wasn't my own. So great to know. Thank you, Deandra, for tuning in with us on this broadcast. Connor, would you say that First Bank is a big bank? Are you guys a medium-sized bank, or are you more of a smaller one in the
That's a wonderfully loaded question. Thank you. We would consider ourselves a mid-sized bank as far as the government and our classification based off of how much we hold in deposits. We are considered kind of a medium-sized institution. We don't play with the big boys, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Chase. But that's not to say that we aren't large. First Bank is the second largest bank in the state of Colorado. We're the third largest privately held bank in the entire country. So if you're looking at those metrics, we're massive because, we're everywhere and taking care of those that are living in Colorado or Phoenix or the Coachella Valley in Southern California, where we have those other branch locations. But as far as, on a national aspect, we're not large. But that's okay. We don't want to be that big box lender. But that's not to say that we can't compete with them. We have local lender decision makers. So you come in, you work on a loan with me. I know my underwriter. I know my processor. I know how I'm going to be able to get this from app to close. You go with some of the other bigger ones and, that disappears. We have a 24-hour department that you can reach someone physically over the phone at any time by pressing 0. I mean, that's huge in this day and age where you try to call other financial institutions and you're sitting on that waiting hold music for 3 hours. That starts to haunt your dreams over the next month or so, right? And so we really like to focus on being involved, in our communities and being able to be helpful for those other individuals. A lot of people that are on the call or watching might have ever used Zelle, right? There's Zelle and there's
Hmm.
Venmo and stuff
Yeah.
out there. Little well known, but First Bank was one of the first four institutions that developed Zelle. So even though we are, a smaller bank as far as the nationwide is concerned, we helped develop it alongside Wells Fargo and Chase and Bank of America. So that puts us, on a national playing scale
Yeah.
then.
And those are some great services that are used so wildly right now, too. We have a question and a comment, and then I had a follow up. So let's see if we can't condense this all in our time, if that's okay.
Perfect. Of course.
Commissioner Tracy Croft Tharp did comment with a question. And this question was around the time when we were talking about fraudsters that are out there, about protecting your data and your information, because people do take that and they use it, unfortunately. And so her question was, why do banks or stores not go after fraudsters and say prosecute them for doing those things?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, going after the individual fraudsters, the first thing is that we have to be able to identify who they are. And quite often, that's very difficult to do because it's some person that's sitting behind a computer screen that's just stealing someone's information over the computer. And so, oftentimes they're not even located inside of the United States. And so, from a bank aspect and from a stores aspect, we're not able to go after them, ourselves to be able to prosecute them, civilly. When people do fall victim to fraud, we have them file police reports so that the police are out there, looking for them, but it doesn't return a lot. What does happen, though, is when someone is identified, we will show up to criminal proceedings. And so there have been times that we send our fraud department to go testify against people who have done bank robberies or done large scale credit card fraud, or check fraud or consumer fraud. So, we try our best, but unfortunately, there's just so much out there. And a lot of times we can't even identify who the fraudster is.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that answer, so thoroughly done, and Commissioner Kraftarp, for asking that of us. This one was a quick comment, and this comment comes to us from Deandra, who's one of our hospitality partners over at the DoubleTree here in Westminster. And Deandra has been tuning in, especially at these points of our conversation about these banking myths and debunking them. And she's sharing that you are welcome to come by to their hotel and speak with their employees about this or some of those additional topics. So what we'll do offline, of course, is make a quick email intro, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And then let that flourish and have our members support one another through some fun engagement activities like this. And here's my follow up question to yours about where you land on the national scale. Are big banks safer than those smaller banks or credit unions that are out there? So, is there a perception that's presently out there? It sounds like there is, that if they don't go with a larger scale, Chase or Wells Fargo, et cetera, it's not as safe for people to do business with them.
Yeah, I think that you're balancing two different questions with that, which is, the safety aspect itself versus the nationwide presence. A lot of times people choose those big box banks because they know that if they go to Philadelphia, there's going to be able to grab an ATM, right? Or there's going to be a physical branch location that if they decide they're moving from Colorado over to a different state, that they're going to be able to continue with no impact to their banking systems themselves. As far as kind of the safety aspect itself, to be honest, some of those bigger, banks have 40, 50,000 people who work in their IT departments that are constantly writing fraud regulations, or they're constantly writing algorithms to be able to say, hey, are we able to identify fraud? First Bank itself, we pride ourselves on being kind of small and nimble. Every year on an annual basis, we have a third-party company or a group of hackers that come in that try to steal information. They try to log in using our customers' online banking, or they try to come in and try to commit fraud, as far as the bank is concerned. And we have so many levels of firewall that we're able to protect our customers that we find out about it very quickly. And they've never been able to get more than 25% of the way through our stuff. And so even though we are smaller, we've been very strong as far as protecting our customers and their personal information. And we haven't had a data breach ever.
That's awesome. Knock on wood. Let's keep that going and
Yes,
continue. Yes, continue on that wonderful track. Very appreciative of it. Commissioner Kraftarp did share thank you to First Bank for being a community partner. I'm a 4-account First Banker. I love it.
Well,
I
thank
love
you for
that
that,
so
Commissioner.
Yes, that is wonderful. Well, Connor, believe it or not, our time has not only ended, it's actually exceeded. And
Oh,
I would
geez.
love to keep, I know, I so enjoyed getting a chance to visit with you. It was just the same the very last time that you and I spoke. It just flies by. Great company, good people. And I love being able to pick your brain on things, but to see your engagement in the company. So, to all of you that are tuned in, thank you for spending your morning, afternoon, evening, weekend, nighttime, whenever it is, tuning in and engaging. If you had a question that you didn't get a chance to ask, you can always type it in later on. We'll be able to see that. If you just review the video, you can give us a hashtag replay that allows us to see that you've engaged with us. And if for some reason you have something that you want to ask us privately offline, whether it's a personal question that you have, especially as this is banking and it is a personal matter, you can always DM the page and we can privately send that over to Connor so he can get that answered for you. Connor, thank
Say,
you for
Juliet,
being.
yeah, I'm open and available for any
Yeah.
questions that people might have for consumer, for business needs, just for banking questions in general. I'm very open and accessible, so feel free, anyone, to reach out.
Absolutely. Connor, before I let you go, what's a good way that they can reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I physically, as I said, work at that location on 88th and Wadsworth, and I'm always happy for walk-ins. So that's probably, the easiest if people want to get that in-person connection. Otherwise, Juliet, I can provide you either with my phone number or email, my direct contact information. I don't know the way that if it's better for me to say it now or if it's better for you to send
Sure.
that out later.
Yeah, so we'll come back and type in the phone number and email for Connor so you guys can pull that up and contact him as you need. And of course, drop in at 80th and Wadsworth. I know that he would love to see a friendly face out there. So, Connor, I will let you go for the rest of your morning, and I hope it's just as pleasant as this broadcast has been.
Definitely. Thank you for the time, Juliet.